song that we just heard with Mr. Hatfield, some things that I want us to know about him. Canada's top astronauts. He spoke to students in each province and territory. He's completed 3 missions to the International Space Station, and he's helped build the International Space Station. On top of that, he was a fantastic musician, or is a fantastic musician. So that is going to be pretty exciting that we got to talk to some astronauts today. When we ask for applause or anything like that, just keep it short. We're on a very tight timeline today, so that's something that we're going to ask as a school community. We're going to just keep it really short and be respectful for that. Okay? What I'm going to do is start us off. We're just going to have a quick introduction. We've got 2 guests coming up to speak with us. The first one is Cameron Priester, who's from DSS. Cameron is an engineer in training and is currently working on his master's. He's going for at Dalhousie University. He's focused on spacecraft, spacecraft attitude, determination, and control are some things that he's working on. 2019, and he received his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering in the spring of 2022. Over his time working on LORIS project, he was focused on the development of the LORIS chassis and the manufacturing and design of the solar wing deployment mechanisms. Over the last few years, Cameron's worked in roles including aircraft maintenance and research and development for mass custom manufacturing locally in Nova Scotia. So Cameron's going to be one of our guests, and Michelle E is as well. Michelle's in her 4th year of electrical engineering at Dal. She joined Dal Space Systems in 2020 and has been part of the university's Canadian CubeSat project ever since. Michelle worked on communication subsystems, testing radio equipment and antennas, and has most recently been helping with the ground station installation. She's excited to see what the satellite LORIS will accomplish, and for her current co-op term at Galaxia Mission Systems, she works as a spaceborne electronics engineer designing circuitry for their modular OVC. So let's have a quick round of applause as we identify the stage. What's up?
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle, and I've been on Dalhousie Space Systems now for about 3 years now. It's been an amazing experience working on the project, and it's been a lot of fun. And I'm very excited to share our CubeSats journey with you all today.
Hey guys, I'm Cameron. I've been working with objects since 2019, and it's always a fantastic opportunity for us to get the chance to kind of talk to students like yourself. So I'm really excited to be here today. Today we're speaking on behalf of Rod Gazzoli, who is the president of our mission and is also the CEO of Galaxia Mission Systems, which is a space company locally here in Halifax. Next slide, please. So to give you a little background as to what LORIS is, LORIS stands for Low Orbit Reconnaissance and Imaging Satellite. I have a 1-to-1 scale replica of it here. LORIS is something called a 2U satellite, which means that it is effectively the size of 2 10-centimeter cubes fused together. The goal of LORIS is to orbit over Nova Scotia and take pictures of the coastline and transmit them back down to Earth. So now I'll pass it off to Michelle, and she'll talk about why CubeSats are so important.
Yeah, so CubeSats are important to the sustainable use of space. As the capabilities get better and better, engineers will be able to design and make satellites that cost less and use less materials. CubeSats like LORIS will eventually re-enter the atmosphere and will burn up, which means it will no longer be there after the mission is completed. Next slide, please. So Dalhousie Space Systems Lab, or DSS, is the organization responsible for the creation of LORIS. We currently have about 50 active members, but over the course of the project, over 300 people have contributed. And that consists of students and professors at the university. It's a big focus for DSS to come to events like these to speak to you guys, the next generation, and encourage you to start your own space projects, and also show how projects like LORIS are possible in Nova Scotia. Next slide.
Yeah, so the primary division of DSS, which was focused on the development of LORIS, was the spacecraft division. And the spacecraft division works on satellites which orbit things like Earth or even the Moon. Next slide, please. We also have a couple other divisions, including the rocketry division, and currently the rocketry division is focused on developing and building a rocket which will go up to 10,000 feet.
Is that all right?
A Mars rover. Next slide, please.
So LORIS is a part of the Canadian CubeSat program that started as an initiative to find universities so that they could design and build their own CubeSat to launch to space. Dalhousie was selected as one of the 15 teams across Canada. So LORIS started as a pretty small group. We were about 4 or 5 and have really grown ever since. And everyone on the project is super proud to be a part of it and is excited to see what LORIS can do in space. Next slide.
Yeah, so the picture you're seeing on the screen now is what the very first concept drawing of LORIS looked like. And you can see it's nothing special, it's just a hand drawing on a piece of paper. But what I think it's really good for is showing that sometimes big ideas can come from a small beginning. And that's what Arad, our mission director, was really, really good for in pushing us to do our best and also to push the boundaries of what we thought was possible for ourselves. Next slide, please. So this is a 3D rendering of what LORIS looks like, and I'm going to point out a couple components and what they do. At the top of the satellite is the solar wings, and the solar wings harness energy from the sun's rays in order to power the subsystems of LORIS. Coming out the side of the satellite, you can see the antenna, and it's really special because it's made out of a really interesting material called a shape memory alloy. And I have an example of what it's like here. A shape memory alloy is a metal that actually can remember its shape. So you can see it's super elastic and will want to spring back to its original shape, which is really interesting for us because it allows us to bend our antenna when it's going up on the rocket, and the antenna will spring back to the shape we want it to be in once LORIS is in space. At the bottom of the CubeSat, you can see the 2 cameras which will point at Earth and take pictures of Nova Scotia as it passes over. Next slide.
All right, so here are some circuit boards that are on LORIS right now. The white one at the top is called our onboard computer, or OBC. So this is the main computer that communicates with all the different subsystems, such as the communication system, ADCS, and power system. So it has all our software on there, and it tells the different subsystems what to do, such as when to take a picture or to send and receive data. In the top right-hand corner, there's the green board, and that's our electrical power system, or EPS for short. That takes energy from the sun and goes through the solar panels and converts it into a form of power that the satellite can use to operate. It also takes surplus energy and stores that in our lithium-ion batteries, which will be used later on when the solar panels aren't generating power.
The blackboard that you see in the picture is what we call the Attitude, Determination, and Control Board. And it's really, really important to the mission because it allows the satellite to know where it is, how fast it's moving, and where it's pointing. All that information is relevant to the satellite because it needs to be able to point in the direction of Halifax when it's passing over. So the way it does that is by using something called a sun sensor, and I have an example of what a sun sensor looks like here. And the sun sensors do exactly what the name says. They sense where the sun is. And by knowing where the sun is, we can actually make an estimate as to where the satellite's pointing. Next slide, please.
All right, so here are some photos from our prototyping phase. The red board in the corner there is called our MSP430. So that takes measurements of the satellite's rotation and tells us how fast it's going. It's hooked up to the ADCS, and the ADCS takes these measurements, and with the help of the reaction wheels, magnets, and motors, it tells the satellite to cancel the rotation so that it will be able to steer and point to a certain location on Earth. On the other side of the screen, we have the OBC hooked up to a camera. And essentially, this test was to make sure that whenever the OBC was sending commands to the camera, it would know when to take a picture. So when we were wrapping up our testing phase, we would make any final changes to the design, and then we would order our flight boards, which are the final versions that would go into the satellite. Next slide.
Okay, so moving along with LORIS's development here, we can see what we call the stack-up test, which is quite literally stacking all the boards inside of LORIS to make sure that all of the circuit boards are communicating together properly and that all the components of LORIS are working the way we want them to in space. On the right-hand side, you can see the solar wing, and we're testing the deployment of the solar wing here. There's springs on the hinge and the wing that actually allow it to actuate and unfold once it is in space. Next slide. In this picture, you can see what a nearly completed version of LORIS looks like, and the team is just doing some final checks to make sure everything is fitting together and that the satellite is working before we send it down to Montreal to the Canadian Space Agency for more testing. Next slide.
So on the left of the screen, you'll see the original antenna built by a few DSS members for a school project, actually. So this is called a helical antenna, and it would be used to communicate to the spacecraft antenna, which is pictured on the right side of the screen. Any form of communication would be in radio waves, much like the radio that's in your car, for example. So when LORIS passes over Halifax, we would be having our ground station and sending commands up to LORIS so that we could receive telemetry or get pictures. Next slide, please. Here you can see one of LORIS's communications engineers doing a test with the ground station antenna. On the other side of the harbor, we had our spacecraft antenna, and we were making sure that the two antennas could communicate to each other. This was a distance of about 9 kilometers, so a lot bigger in range than the tests we were doing in our office. Because LORIS could successfully send data over to the ground station antenna, we confirmed that communication was possible here on Earth. Next slide.
Okay, so moving along with the testing, we can see another important phase for the testing of LORIS, and that's what we call the vibe test or the vibration test. When LORIS is launching to the International Space Station, it will be on a rocket that's going to be vibrating and shaking really strongly, and that could potentially cause damage to the satellite if it's not developed properly. So on the right-hand side, you can see what we call the soft stow configuration, and that is the best simulation that we can do here on Earth to ensure that LORIS will be able to handle the launch vibrations it will experience en route to the ISS. Next slide. So you can see in this picture, the team is posing after a successful vibe test, where all the data indicated that it is likely LORIS will be able to survive the launch environment en route to the ISS. Next slide.
So here you can see a final product of the satellite. One thing that's important to note is the red tag on the satellite that says remove before flight, just like the one I have here. So this is super important because before we deploy it from the ISS, we have to take this pin out. It starts a 30-minute timer, so when the satellite is circulating around the Earth, the 30 minutes will count down, and when that time is up, the satellite will activate and open up the solar panels, and at this point, we would be sending commands up to the satellite to try to get some data. Next slide. So we actually got the opportunity to go to the Canadian Space Agency this past June to get a tour of the facility before handing off LORIS. The orange case you see right there was actually used to hold and protect LORIS when we were traveling from Nova Scotia to Montreal. Next slide.
And here we have some members of the team working in the clean room at the CSA. And what their job is to remove any dust, debris, or contaminants that are on the spacecraft before we send it to space. The reason for that is we don't want to bring those contaminants to the ISS with the satellite. On the right-hand side, you can see a member from NanoRacks looking down to inspect the satellite. And NanoRacks is a company that actually communicates with NASA in order to schedule our launch. Next slide, please.
Right, so it's very important that the CubeSats fit inside a deployer before it's ready for launch. A deployer is used in space. When it's on the ISS, it will be pushed out through the deployer into orbit. So the NanoRacks representative here is making sure that everything is lined up, and when he runs the CubeSats through the deployer, that nothing gets stuck. On the right, you will see LORIS, and on the left is OrcaSat, which is the CubeSat created by University of Victoria. Next slide. So we have DSS members and CSA posing for a photo here after the successful integration of both CubeSats in the deployer. This means that they did all their fit tests and fit checks and passed them, and they are now ready for launch and is ready to be shipped off to Florida. Next slide.
Okay, so this is the very last stage of LORIS's journey into space, and that is deployment from the International Space Station. So an astronaut on the International Space Station is going to load the satellite into the deployer, and the deployer will push the satellite out and away from the International Space Station. And he does that just so that the satellite is moving just ever so slow excuse me, just a little bit slower than the ISS, just to make sure that it doesn't, on successful orbits, go and collide with the International Space Station. So that's it for our presentation, and I wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to have us here, so I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Next up, we're going to have a quick video presentation. We're going to find out the astronaut that we're speaking to today. His name is Josh Cassada. This is his first international flight, but 68th overall. So what we would like to do is put the video on and let you learn a little bit about Josh before we move on.
International Space Station. I was born in California, but I was raised in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. In high school, I really enjoyed and did well at math, and that's actually what drove me to wanting to study physics in college, was to understand the bigger picture and really how the universe works and operates. I got both my master's and PhD and studied with an incredible team at Fermilab doing high-energy particle physics. At Fermilab, we collide protons and antiprotons at nearly the speed of light. The interesting part of particle physics is this is how we understand what's happening at the fundamental building blocks of nature. At the conclusion of my graduate studies at Fermilab, I had an opportunity to join the US Navy and fly for the Navy, and I absolutely took it. The Navy has been really good to me, but it was a shift in culture for sure. I have flown over 4,000 hours in over 45 aircraft, and what that allows you to do is just be ready for whatever's coming next and know that you're gonna have to think on your feet. There is a link between aviation and physics, and for me, that link is just being ready for the unexpected. You have to be prepared for everything that might be thrown at you. You need to be able to look at problems in very different ways. And so I thought, man, being an astronaut kind of merges all of those things.
NASA says it's accepting applications for new astronauts.
Of the roughly 3,500 applicants NASA is expecting, only about 15 will be selected for training.
And so I had applied for this position at NASA. I'll be honest, I had no intention of getting it. You know, you don't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket. So I gave it a shot. And when I got that call, my family and my friends, we couldn't be more excited to be a part of this amazing, amazing experience. And I'll tell you, I am just so honored and humbled to be a part of this NASA team and to be able to contribute to the next generation of exploration and science. I couldn't be more lucky than to fly with Crew 5. For me, going to space is an opportunity to do my job. We've been training and preparing for a long time, and to be honest, that's my priority, is to get up there and do what we've been trained to do. And the science is an incredibly exciting part of that for me too. That's why we explore space. We do things that make this world worthwhile.
You ready? All right, we're now going to bring up Wayne. He's our ARIS mentor. He's been working for ARIS, or amateur radio, and the International Space Station for over 20 years. He's mentored over 30 contacts with schools in North and South America, as well as parts of the Caribbean, and he's had a lifelong interest in aeronautics and of the Gemini program. We've had Wayne here before, and we're really excited to have him back. So Wayne, thank you for coming today.
Oh, great. I think I should have stayed home. Sorry, everybody. As the saying goes, space is hard. So we've experienced some of that here today, and hopefully we'll have a good contact, because that's why we're here today, to speak with Josh and enjoy what's left of the contact. We're not too far out right now. Eric, can you bring up Claudio, please? Claudio, are you with us?
I am online, Wayne.
Okay, Claudio. Claudio is located in Italy. And how much time do we have before AOS, Claudia?
Okay. Well, I become an amateur radio also from my passion for electronics, transceiver, space, and satellite. As for my friend Fabio, Italy Whiskey 1 Bravo November Delta, here in the ground station, a member of Telebridge team. Following the exam to become amateur radio, we started contacting amateur radio stations worldwide via satellite, and after with Mir Space Station and now International Space Station. Our great ground station was certified as official Telebridge station from Harris 12 years ago, and we have 90 official Telebridge and 200 for backup and etc. So microphone back to you, Wayne.
Okay, Claudio, checking our time here. We're way behind on the timeline, and it doesn't look like we're going to be able to move forward with the formal script. Confirm you're about 2 minutes away from AOS?
Yes, we have 2 minutes and 2 seconds from now.
Okay, so we're not going to miss Josh, but we're going to miss some of the official script here. Maybe we can pick it up later on. All right, so Claudio is in Italy, and we're hoping to have a successful contact. Claudio has a very good station that has a fine history of supporting these events. In fact, yesterday he supported one with, I think it was 9 countries, wasn't it, Claudio? The St. Lucia contact?
Yes, all systems are go for the contact. We have 1 minute and 20 seconds here in Casale Monferrato, northwest of Italy.
Well, Claudio, we're going to go ahead and hand the comm over to you for your call to space station. We have our students ready to go, and fingers are crossed. So, Claudio, it's over to you, and we will see you on the other side. Good luck with the contact.
Okay, thank you very much, Wayne. We have 47 seconds from now. The ISS is approaching to Europe, and in a few seconds we will have the AOS. Okay, 10 seconds, and I'm calling now. Oscar Romeo 4, India Sierra Sierra. This is India Kilo 1, Sierra Lima Delta, Telebridge ground station, calling for a scheduled Irish contact. Do you copy, Josh? Over.
India Kilo 1, Sierra Lima Delta. This is Oscar Romeo 4, India Sierra Sierra. How do you hear?
Okay, Oscar Romeo 4, India Sierra Sierra, IK1, SLD. Good afternoon again, Josh. Your signal is loud and clear. Welcome in Italy, and today we are acting for 5 Bridges Junior High School in Stillwater Lake, Canada. Are you ready for first question? Over.
I have you loud and clear, and I'm ready for questions from 5 Bridges. Over.
Okay, go ahead, Sam.
This is Sam. Why did you choose to be an astronaut and join the space agency? Over.
Hello, Sam. Well, when I was your age, I followed the space shuttle program pretty closely and was really excited about it. And then I found myself really drawn to science and math, and also later in my life, aviation. And all those things kind of combined together, as well as my passion for learning new things. So it seemed like a great fit, but I'll tell you what, being an astronaut is a little bit like playing the lottery. You can't win if you don't buy a ticket, but you really can't count on it. Over.
This is Tias. What was the best and most interesting part of your training to become an astronaut? Over.
Hi, Tias. Well, I'll tell you what, the most interesting part is that every day is interesting. It's very different. You can never really anticipate how the day is going to go. Some days we are doing research. Some days we're doing maintenance on the space station. Some days we do spacewalks, and we do robotics to capture cargo vehicles. So every day is very different, and it's different throughout the day. But I really enjoy the spacewalks training. Over.
This is Hayden. What is it like to go through the atmosphere and into space at high speeds for extended periods of time? Over.
Hey, Hayden. Well, we launched out of the east coast of Florida at the beginning of October. And to get to weightlessness, we had to go through some accelerations. And so we found ourselves experiencing anywhere between 3 and 4.5 Gs. But those Gs are a little different than what you experience in a jet. Instead of going from your head down to your toes, it goes really through your chest. So it's really like having somebody sitting on your chest a little bit. but it only lasts for a couple minutes. And I found the most interesting part was that my tongue felt really heavy. You can imagine your tongue weighing 4.5 times as much as it weighs right now. It's an interesting feeling. Over.
This is Blake. Does everyone rest at the same time, or do you work in shifts? Over.
Hi, Blake. We usually work the same schedule. We live on Greenwich Mean Time, which is what time it is in London right now. But sometimes when we have important activities to do, like spacewalks or robotics, sometimes we'll shift and work different schedules from each other. But we do try to stay on the same schedule as much as we can. Over.
This is Eli. What is a day like for you on the ISS? Over.
Hey, Eli. Well, they're not ever the same. This morning was an interesting one. We woke up in the early hours of the morning to some alarms that were going off because there was a problem with an electrical system on the space station. But Mission Control took great care of us. And so days like that kind of started a little early, and I found myself doing a lot of maintenance around the space station and also helping out with some of the researchers. Last week we did a spacewalk, and next week we'll do a spacewalk. So every day is very, very different. Over.
This is Marley. What do you hope to achieve with your experiments during your mission? Over.
Hi, Marley. Well, I come from science, and so I know that our advances in science and technology tend to be incremental. We make little steps more often than we make giant steps all at once, and we can kind of build off of that. So in terms of what we're going to accomplish up here, we're getting very good and smarter at long-duration spaceflight, as well as learning things about the human body and helping our researchers do fundamental research on the ground. They're doing experiments up here and then analyzing the data down there. So we have physics and biology and chemistry, and you name it, we're doing it up here. And it's pretty amazing to see what we're going to learn in the future. Over.
This is Luke. How will the use of robotics help astronauts in the future? Over.
Hey, Luke. Well, I can tell you how robotics are going to help this astronaut in the very near future. Next week, in our spacewalk, I will be at the end of the Canada arm that is on the International Space Station, and my feet will be plugged into the end of that, and we're going to use that to drive me around the space station, and we're going to install a brand new solar array. It's really cool, and we can only do it with the use of robotics. But in terms of exploration, robotics and human exploration go hand in hand. We really don't want to go there until we've explored with a robot to make sure that we use our time efficiently. Over.
This is Riley. What are your hobbies and how do you pursue them on the ISS? Over.
Hey, Riley. I love it when things break and then I get to fix them. And that happens a lot at my house. Our house was built in 1870, so I've got a lot of that kind of stuff to do. And of course, I get a lot of that up here because we've got a lot to do to maintain this very complex spacecraft. So I get to do that. My other hobbies are aviation. I like to fly little airplanes. I'm not doing much of that up here. And when I get back, my two boys are going to show me how to sail. They are very good sailors, and I don't know how to do it. Over.
This is Lily. What are problems that you have to anticipate or prepare for on the ISS that you would not have to on Earth? Over.
Hey, Lily. Well, I'll tell you what. Every time you open up a bag of stuff, that stuff goes everywhere. And you can try hard to push it back in, but it's just going to pop back out, and it's just a mess. That's why when we do spacewalks, all our tools and all our equipment are tethered, or they have little strings on them, so that when they do float away, they don't go far. Over.
This is Eris. What are some common misconceptions about astronauts? Over.
Hey, Eris. I think maybe one misconception is that we're different. We're just normal people who really, really enjoy exploration, and sometimes we have a very diverse background. Some of us have done some very different things. Nobody has the same background, but we're just normal people who just love doing what we do. Over.
This is Rie. How do you celebrate all diverse nationalities, beliefs, and religions while on board the ISS? Over.
Hi, Rie. Well, for me and for the rest of us, it's actually pretty easy up here because we're all such good friends that we are curious about everyone's background, and we just naturally are able to enjoy and respect those backgrounds. In fact, I'm up here with my friend Nicole Mann, who has Native American background. My friend Frank is from El Salvador. My friend Koichi is from Japan. And then we have 3 Russian cosmonauts with us. So we get to experience it very organically. Over.
This is Naomi. When the ISS is retired from service in 2030, what will replace it in low Earth orbit? Over.
Hi, Naomi. Well, NASA's going to probably be focusing on deep space exploration at that point, so it will likely be a commercial enterprise that works as a laboratory here in low Earth orbit and continues to do this amazing science. Over.
This is Marley. What are examples of equipment and materials that were necessary to bring for your specific mission? Over.
Marley, I think the best example I've got is a cargo vehicle that's headed our way this week that's got those solar arrays on there. They're super cool solar arrays that are all rolled up, and we're going to take them out and install them and then unroll them. And that's a really important part of what we're doing up here. Over.
This is Eris. If you weren't an astronaut, what job would you have pursued and why? Over.
Hi, Eris. I know the answer to that one because I used to do it. I owned my own company with a friend of mine, and we built little single photon detectors. They're important physics detectors, and I really miss that kind of science and hands-on work and running my own company. So maybe someday I can go back to something like that. Over.
1 minute plus.
This is Naomi. If there was one thing you wanted young people to know about space or aerospace programs, what would it be? Over.
Naomi, I would tell them not to be afraid, even if it seems confusing. When you first encounter a new topic, it just seems daunting because maybe you don't speak the language quite yet. Sometimes that language is jargon, sometimes that language is math. But stick with it, and you can absolutely sort it out, and then you're really, really going to enjoy it. Over.
This is Rory. Does everyone rest at the same time, or do you work in shifts? Oh, shoot. This is Rory. How would the effects of the increasing radiation from the sun affect life on the ISS? Over.
Nope, Blake, I get it. That is a good question, and we do have radiation up here that we need to monitor. So we make sure that we don't get too much during our time up here. We don't have any immediate threats, but what we're thinking about is down the road, maybe 40, 50 years from now, how that radiation is going to affect us. So we keep a good track of the radiation.
Claudio Wayne here. Claudio?
Yes, we have lost of signal from Italy.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Claudio. I think we got all the questions in? All the questions, but we never had an opportunity to say thank you to Josh. So on behalf of everybody here at Five Bridges, I'd like to provide an applause for Josh and the job that he did. Good job. So that concludes today's ARIS Contact. We did get all the questions done. That was super. As far as some other comments, I think if you want to join me, you can come in. And the comments could be made, but certainly I think we've all experienced a little bit of history here at Five Bridges. And we hope you have taken some of the inspiration that was obviously provided by Josh and the entire crew on board Expedition 68. And on behalf of Eris, I would like to say thank you very, very much for allowing us to come into your school. A few bumps, but remember, space is hard. Over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Wayne. Just from a school perspective, we want to thank you guys. Being in the audience for this long, you did a fantastic job. For the live feed, we want to thank everyone for watching as well.
Christ, man.
And then for everyone up on the stage, how difficult was that? You did amazing. So the stuff that we've seen in the school, from the designing of the shirts to everyone watching the launches to everything that you're doing in class, we hope that you've really enjoyed this experience and it's something that it takes with you. You stay with this and you remember this when you're a lot older, my age, when you get gray hair. So again, thank you everyone for attending, and we're gonna have a quick presentation, I think, once we go off air. Ms. Kirkpatrick's gonna come in, and just some special thank yous as well. So thank you very much.